Sometimes, the people who look the most trustworthy can hide the darkest intentions. I learned that the hardest way possible. I was driving home after a long janitor shift when I received a call from CPS. The woman on the phone told me they had received a serious complaint about the neglect of my 7-year-old daughter, Sadie. A caseworker was already at my house. My hands started shaking so badly that I had to pull the car over. I rushed home. When I walked through the door, I saw Sadie sitting beside a woman in a blazer. My little girl was crying and repeatedly asking if she had done something wrong. I immediately went to her. She buried her face in my work uniform. Through the window, I noticed our neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, watching from her porch. The CPS worker explained that someone had accused me of severely neglecting Sadie. One of the main pieces of evidence was her clothing. Sadie had a favorite purple dress. It was old and faded, but it was clean. More importantly, she loved it. Then my late wife's parents arrived. Richard and Carol walked into my house like they already owned it. They had apparently been informed about the investigation. Richard showed the CPS worker photographs of Sadie at school, pointing out how her clothes looked compared with the other children. Carol suggested that Sadie should temporarily stay with them while I got back on my feet. 2 weeks later, we were in court. Sadie sat in the witness chair with her little feet dangling above the floor. The judge asked her about me. She simply said, "I love my daddy." She explained that her clothes were special because they had belonged to her mother. Her father washed them every week. And she didn't want new clothes. But despite what she said, the judge granted Richard and Carol temporary custody. I felt like my entire world collapsed. Sadie screamed for me as they took her away. The supervised visits afterward were heartbreaking. I was allowed to see my daughter for only 2 hours each week in a sterile room. She would hold on to me and whisper that she wanted to go home. Then she stopped eating at her grandparents' house. She lost weight. She stopped talking at school. And that's when someone finally stepped forward. Mrs. Smith, Sadie's teacher, had known her since kindergarten. She had also lost her own mother when she was young, so she understood how deeply children could be affected by losing a parent. She had been documenting Sadie's behavior. She told me Sadie had become almost completely silent in class. The school psychologist confirmed that she was showing severe emotional regression. But Richard and Carol still argued that I wasn't capable of parenting her. They claimed I was stuck in grief and couldn't properly care for my daughter. Then they offered me a horrifying deal. They would keep permanent guardianship of Sadie, and I could see her once a month. I stood in court and refused. My daughter needs me. I won't abandon her. They responded by filing for permanent guardianship themselves. Then my life became even harder. People in my grief support group started avoiding me. Someone left a note on my car suggesting that some fathers simply couldn't raise children alone. My boss threatened to fire me because I kept missing work for court and visitation. Meanwhile, Sadie became quieter and quieter. During visits, she barely spoke. She would simply hold my hand while tears rolled down her face. Then Mrs. Johnson started investigating. She had been watching our family since my wife died. She had also been keeping notes. And eventually, she brought me 2 years' worth of documentation. Then she contacted a child advocacy organization. That's when they discovered something shocking. The grandparents' lawyer had appeared in several other cases involving widowed fathers. And the pattern was almost identical. The same accusations. The same arguments about neglect. The same attempt to obtain custody. It appeared that other grieving fathers had been targeted in a similar way. Then Richard and Carol made their final offer. They told me they could raise Sadie and give me weekly unsupervised visits. Richard looked at me and said, "Think about what's best for her. We can give her everything." For a moment, I almost accepted. I was exhausted. I was working 2 jobs. I was grieving my wife. And I started wondering if maybe my daughter really would have a better life without me. Then I remembered something. Sadie's hands gripping the doorframe during one of our visits. She had been screaming, "Please, Daddy, don't leave me." Her little fingernails had left marks in the wood. That image stayed with me. And Mrs. Johnson wasn't finished. She discovered old footage from 6 months before the CPS complaint. In the videos, Sadie was happy. She was laughing. She was wearing the same faded purple dress. There was no sign of neglect. The advocacy group obtained communications between Richard and Carol, and the messages were devastating. They appeared to show that the grandparents had been planning their custody case since my wife's funeral. They blamed me for their daughter's death and accused me of neglecting Sadie. They hadn't suddenly become concerned about her welfare. They had been waiting for an opportunity. The emergency hearing was completely different. This time, the judge carefully examined the evidence. He saw videos of Sadie before being separated from me. She was happy and healthy. Her drawings from that period were full of bright colors and rainbows. Then he saw her drawings from her grandparents' house. They were almost entirely black scribbles. The judge immediately reversed custody. Richard and Carol were limited to supervised visits. CPS launched its own investigation, and their lawyer faced professional ethics consequences. It took months for Sadie to recover. Slowly, she started talking again. She began speaking about her mother. She returned to school activities. And little by little, she became the happy little girl she had been before everything happened. Then one day, she drew a picture. It showed her, me, and her mother as an angel watching over us. She presented it to her class. And when someone asked her about the picture, she simply said, "My daddy saved me." That sentence meant everything to me. Because through all the accusations, court battles, and doubt, I had almost forgotten one important thing. I wasn't trying to be the perfect father. I was simply trying to be her father. And sometimes, the people who claim they're protecting a child aren't the ones who truly understand what that child needs. Sometimes, you have to look at the child's eyes and listen to what they're trying to tell you.